Um, I'm really excited in this particular episode of In Conservation with to have a guy that I actually met. I met you, Sabi. I met you about probably no more than 2 years ago, I'd say, maybe even a year. I'm not even sure. You have to remind me.
I think we met at the bird fair years ago, but we had our first proper chat last year at the Bird Experience.
Oh, that's right. We met in Austria at the Pannonian Bird Experience, which is a really interesting bird festival in Austria. So yeah, that's when we met. That was last year, but we actually met before. But I meet so many people, it's untrue, and I forget most of them. So I apologize. I think at the time. How do you pronounce your first name?
It's Szabolcs.
Szabolcs Kókay.
Kókay, yeah. Szabolcs is my Christian name.
Okay, well, we actually want to call you Sabi because I think that's probably easier to pronounce, isn't it?
Everybody calls me Sabi, so it's fine.
Okay. Well, I'd like to introduce everyone to Sabi. Today, this afternoon, Sabi's going to be painting live. And if you are interested in asking questions as to his technique and any other art influence, or even any kind of question, please feel free. You know what to do. Basically, if you can wave and let us know, then that would be good. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Sabi, because you may not, it's not a household name yet. It should be, because his art, for me, as far as I'm concerned, is phenomenal. He was born in Hungary. He's been interested in nature and especially birds ever since childhood. Although he's also been drawing for as long as he can remember. I mean, do you actually remember the first bird you ever drew?
I don't remember the very first, because I was drawing birds since my early ages. But I clearly remember that my first kind of serious bird illustration was a pipit. I can't remember the English name, which is living in the alpine regions.
Oh, water pipit.
Water pipit. That was a winter plumage water pipit.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And you drew that at what age?
When I started drawing birds seriously when I turned 20, when I was 20. So quite late.
Well, okay, that's fair enough. It says, I'm reading your bio here, as long as you can remember, you've been, especially in the later part of your life, which is, 20 plus, you've been interested in nature and birds and art at the same time, and all merged. And now, for you, it goes hand in hand. So after finishing your education, you began working in nature conservation, initially BirdLife Hungary, and later at the Ministry of Environment, working on the Washington Convention for Endangered Species. This work enabled you to get a better insight into the nature conservation of your native country, Hungary, in addition to widening your reputation as a young illustrator. So what was your early days like working, for BirdLife Hungary and for this organization?
Sometimes I didn't have that exciting jobs there. For example, in BirdLife Hungary, I was the kind of caretaker of everything, just to buy all the office stuffs, papers.
In England, we call that a dog's body.
Yeah, that was me there. So not so exciting. And at the Washington Convention office, I had to issue permits for animal breeders or import permits. I made a lot of mistakes because I had to fill a lot of details. So that part was not that exciting at all.
But I suppose during that period of time, you also managed to find time to observe nature and to start illustrating.
Yeah. In fact, I get a huge inspiration in BirdLife Hungary when I found a lot of international print materials, books, magazines, and they were full of bird illustrations. And I was shocked to see them. Oh, why not to do that myself? So that was a big kick for me there.
Are there many bird artists in Hungary?
Not especially bird artists. There are a lot of game artists who are painting hunting scenes mainly. But like in the UK, bird illustrators or artists only a few.
And in this world, do you get to meet fellow artists, you know, in Europe, for example, fellow bird and wildlife artists?
Or yeah, quite regularly. For example, last May, a year ago, and the previous October, there were several artists coming to Hungary, organized by Artists for Nature Foundation in the southwestern Hungary. So we had artists from Britain, we had Pascalis Dugalis from Germany. He is Greek but living in Germany. We had another friend, he's also from Germany, Stefan Bönch. He's half Hungarian, half German. So it was a really exciting project. But also from time to time, wildlife artists who knows me, they just come to Hungary and we go out for birding or sketching, painting.
Okay, and let me ask this question: when did you start using watercolors? Was it always the case, or did you start after sketching?
No, when I started painting birds, first I started only with black and white drawings, pen drawings, pen and ink drawings. But when I started painting, I used acrylics. I did everything, the big paintings on canvas with acrylics, the illustrations with acrylics. But there was a turning point in 2005. I really started to hate acrylics because it dries very quickly. You can't do the transitions, really smooth transitions with it. So I really started to get unsatisfied with that material. So that's when I turned to watercolors and oils. Watercolors for my illustrations. I also use a little bit of gouache. I will show you later. And for the really big paintings, I use oils. It took 1 or 2 years to get used to oils from acrylics because acrylics dries really quickly and oil dries very slowly. So it was a big change. So it took, I think, at least 2 years to get used to it.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about your actual technique once you start completing the wonderful painting you got there with the Ortolan. But let me ask you, how have you found the lockdown? How's that been for you? I mean, I know Hungary's kind of come out of it now, haven't they?
Yeah, and the lockdown was not so serious here. So we were allowed to get out. If we want some outdoor activities, we can do it. We could do it alone or with the immediate family together. So I could get out for birding, sketching, no problem. But I haven't met anybody. I went alone in the car.
Yeah. So what? Obviously, outside of coronavirus pandemic, what's your average day like?
It's all the same in this pandemic situation. All the same. I get up at 7, 6:30. When my kids went to school, I just prepared them, and when they left, I could start to work at around 8 o'clock. So now it's the same. I usually start at 7 or 8, and I'm working too much. I usually finish at 11 in the night with short breaks. So I work 12, 14 hours a day.
Are your family interested in natural history?
Yeah, my boys really hooked up with it. We every year we go a few days to a ringing camp. They love it. Sometimes we go out together. They really notice the birds. Once they pointed out an imperial eagle for me while I was driving. They saw the bird and told me. So I'm quite proud of them, and they love spiders. The younger one has a tarantula.
Tarantula.
Tarantula, yeah.
Wow. Excuse me. I'm looking at your accolades, for want of a better word. In fact, I'm looking actually at the fact that you're quite well travelled. You know, you've been, you know, obviously places in Europe, but further afield to Morocco, China, India, Trinidad, New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and most recently Uganda. So,
Yeah.
Of those places, what was the most exciting for you?
I think definitely New Guinea. I had 2 trips there. In 2014, I've been to Papua New Guinea, to the east side. Last summer, I went to West Papua, mostly concentrating on birds of paradise. And on these 2 trips, I've seen three quarters of them all, of all the birds of paradise. And it's amazing. It was mind blowing.
Was that for a field guide?
Yeah. I did some illustrations for. I think I have it. Yeah, I have it here for this New Guinea field guide, Birds of New Guinea, and I did illustrations for it. I did the shorebirds, the birds of paradise, some fruit doves, and the author of the book, my boss, invited me on these 2 trips. We did them together.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
What other books have you contributed towards? I know you contributed to one, Woodpeckers of the World. I'm just wondering if I've got a copy here, actually.
Woodpeckers of the World, I only have 1 photograph in it. But the same author, Gerard Gorman, published other woodpecker books, and I illustrated his book on black woodpeckers and one of the woodpeckers of Europe. So two woodpecker books.
What is your favourite family of birds? What birds do you like painting the most?
Definitely shorebirds.
Oh, really?
Shorebird fanatic. I love them.
Fantastic. Well, I guess you might as well take us through your piece of artwork there and maybe show us the work you're doing. And fellow Zoomers, if anyone has any questions, you know what to do. You just flag yourself up and let us know, and we can... Oh, there's one here, actually. Oh, actually, it's not a question. It's just a statement from Tong Mu. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. He said he just loves shorebirds. So,
yeah, shorebirders.
Okay.
Together.
All right. So, take us through your piece of work now.
It's an Ortolan Bunting, a singing Ortolan Bunting, and I do it for the front cover of the new European breeding bird atlas. It's in preparation. It will be published in December, and I have the huge honor. I was asked to do the front cover for this important piece of work.
Fantastic. And by the way, Ronique has asked a question. She's asked, what other wildlife artists inspire you?
My absolute favorite is Lars Jansson. He gave me so much inspiration, especially with his dedication to fieldwork. When I started, I'm self-taught. I haven't applied to any art college. So my learning process was watching other artists' works, how they work, and immediately at the beginning it became very obvious to me that those artists have the biggest impact on me who go out and paint outdoors, not only from photographs. It was clear for me that I want to follow this route, and a big impact was Lars Jansson.
He's amazing. He's actually going to be coming here on Sunday, so that's going to be a good thing. And yeah, I mean, I echo Ronique, who's saying that you're self-taught. That's amazing. So what is your process? I mean, you got this image here of the Ortolan Bunting.
Yeah.
How, where do you start? Do you do line drawing first, or do you just paint straight onto?
Yes, I can show you. I can show you. So this is a hot press paper. It's very smooth. I do my illustrations on hot press paper. In the field, I use cold press, which has a rough surface. But to make an accurate illustration, I prefer to have a smooth paper. And it's quite sensitive, so I don't want to use a rubber on the paper because it destroys the surface. And the watercolor doesn't behave the same on a torn surface. So I do the initial drawings on a separate sheet of cheap paper, so I can use rubber eraser on this with no problem. So I do my initial drawing on such papers like this, and try to make the composition like this. How should I put these branches? So and the final image was put together in Photoshop, and I traced the final image through my screen. So this is the final drawing, and I put this drawing the other side on the window, and I trace all the lines on the other side of the paper too.
Yeah.
So I create my own tracing paper. So when I put it on the watercolor paper, and I trace all the lines firmly, but not so. I don't apply too much pressure, but firmly I trace all the lines, and I transfer the image to the paper. And this way I don't have to use eraser on this watercolor paper.
Okay, just to interrupt you for a second. I just want to show Ronique what this bird is. I know it's back to front. It's called an Ortolan Bunting because Ronique's from America, so they don't get Ortolan Buntings there. It's a Mediterranean bunting species, which actually, unfortunately, is not doing very well in some places. I mean, France, they've been hunted ridiculously by people who want to have them as gourmet meals.
Yeah.
In Spain, we have a reasonably good colony or breeding areas of where they are. In Extremadura, where I am, there's breeding pairs in the mountains further north of me. So they're still around, but in southern France, places like that are not doing very well at all.
It's extinct in Hungary.
It's extinct now, is it?
Yeah, we have a few records, not every year, but it's extinct as a breeder.
And Dave was asking, do you use rough paper in the field?
Yeah, cold pressed. I think it's between the two. So this is sorry, excuse me. This is quite very smooth. Rough paper is very rough, and the one I use, the cold pressed, is between the two.
Okay, good. So, excuse me. So how long did it take you to get to that stage?
I started this one yesterday, so it's roughly 1 day work. 10, 12 hours work. Could
you possibly, have you got any other bits of your work you can just quickly show us? If you've got anything sort of in those shelves or anything, you can just quickly show other types of work you've done?
Oh yeah, I just have something here beside me. So I do all kind of wildlife. So not only birds. So this is from a recent project. It was a project on the Maros river in Romania. So I had to paint a lot of fishes. This is a kind of carp and native there in this river. This is a fish. I love mammals. Here is a pine marten I did 5 years ago. It was, I think, for a poster. Painted it for a poster. It's an earlier work from 2008. I painted the snakes for a field guide of reptiles of Southeast Asia, and I had to paint 105 snakes, 10 or 11 plates. This is one of them. It was a quite tough job because snakes to do all the scales, all this scale system of their body, it needed a lot of patience, but it was a very interesting job. I think I had to paint species which are known only from one specimen, so it was, I think, like this is a quite recently described species. So this was a snake job. What else do I have here? This is a plate, a comparison plate of the common and Arctic terns, the adults and the juveniles. I did it for BirdLife Hungary because we have both species in Hungary. The Arctic is quite rare.
Yes.
So it's a kind of identification illustration. Now here is a red fox. In fact, I won a second prize in an illustration competition in Spain with this one. So probably I will keep it. It's dear to me, so I will not sell it anytime. Never sell it.
Beautiful.
An interesting shorebird. It's a Nordmann's green shank. It's a really endangered Asian species. It's breeding in Siberia and migrates to Southeast Asia. It's called the Nordmann's green shank.
Yeah, I've never seen one. I've been to Thailand a couple of times to try and twitch or to see them.
Oh.
I saw spoonbill sandpiper, but never Nordmann's green shank.
I've been to China in 2013, especially for the spoonbill sandpiper, but I've seen summer plumage like this, the Nordmann's green shank. Oh, and on this one I can show you some details. So I use this body color technique. The body color is the mixture of white gouache with watercolors, and for such details like the edges of the feathers of the birds, I use this body color, or for example the shine on the bird's bill or the shine in the eye. That's where I use the body color, or these tiny spots on the edges of the feathers. Yeah, that's why I don't use watercolors purely.
Yeah, I got a message here from Tong. Tong, is it possible for you to talk to us? Because I'd love to know, where. Yeah, hello, Tong. Tell us about the Nordmann's green shank.
Well, Sabi knows a lot about it. Hi, Sabi.
Hi.
Possibly I should start my video. Hi. So I worked with Jing quite a lot in southern Jiangsu as well. So that's how I got to know your name and your paintings. And it's great that I got the chance to join the conversation. Yeah, so southern Jiangsu, that's where Sabi went to see the spoon-billed sandpiper, both in spring and fall. And actually, it's known to be sort of the major stopover site for Nordmann's green shank as well. I think possibly it holds the whole population during southward migration in fall. I think it has been more than 1,000 individuals recorded there.
That's fascinating, Tong. Are you actually from that region?
Not really. I'm from China, but I'm studying in the States, in the United States now on shorebirds.
Oh,
On
cool.
shorebirds. Wow.
Because yeah, the Nordmann's is not a common bird at all, is it? I mean, I'm not even sure. Where does it breed?
It breeds in sort of on the border between northeastern China and Russia, so in the taiga forest, I think.
Okay. Cool. Okay. What advice, can I ask you, Sabi, would you give? I mean, I know you're showing the small pictures, but what advice would you give people when it comes to learning and starting watercolor painting, or what's this painting wildlife in the first instance?
I think, as this was my journey, I strongly suggest to go out and watch the bird yourselves, and go out and try to sketch them from life, because it gives so much more to a painting if you paint from your inspiration, from your own observation, and not only from photographs you find on the internet.
And how did you, I mean, you're self-taught, so did you do the classic thing of, you know, drawing an oval for the body and then a small circle for the head and then joining it with the neck, and, you know, is that how you started, or were you more organic in your style?
No, I think I still use this technique. For example, when I was drawing this Ortolan Bunting, I think you know it's still no longer visible on this drawing, but I think I did. I think I really did start with some circles and ovals. One circle here for the head, a big oval here for the body. I still use this technique and try to refine the proportions. For example, this eye was a little bit too high up. I removed it a little bit. So after these rough initial drawings, I just refine the bird shape. For example, here is when I was trying to establish the composition. You can still see that I did these ovals, even for the blossoms of the tree. I put some rough ovals or circles where I imagined the main part of the tree.
Okay. Do you, I mean, look, I mean, I write stuff all the time, and sometimes I write something and think, not sure about that. Do you have the same feeling when you produce a piece of art? Do you sometimes think to yourself, that's not my best work, or do you love everything?
You mean frustration? It's all the time, all the time. It's so strange. I'm really not satisfied with the final results. Usually, very rarely have this privilege.
But you still submit it anyway.
Pardon?
Sorry,
can you repeat it?
Yes. Do you still, having not feeling that great about it, you still hand it in to be used?
Yeah.
I suppose you have to let go, don't you?
A few days ago, I did a 10 mums owl, and this is a rare case when I'm more or less satisfied with it. I think with this, I think I caught the character of this small owl. So this is a rare thing when I'm more or less satisfied with the final result.
The going back to the Ortolan Bunting, did you actually, is that bird painted from memory? Because this is a question from Ronique here. Is it memory? Is it a photograph? Is it a collection of different things? How did you get to that particular?
No, I don't, because illustrations must be very accurate. So I have to use reference material. I have few photographs of Ortolan Buntings. I could use them, but I wanted to find a very characteristic posture of this in the full song. So I looked for a reference on the internet, and not only for photographs but for videos. So I found some good videos on YouTube, and I used some frames from these videos to build up this posture.
So it's all about capturing the nuances of the behavior, the actual sort of the character.
For example, I really love when the feathers, how to say, rough up when the bird is in full song, and you can see this small. You can see the between the feathers. I love this. When I paint a singing bird, I usually show this.
Good. Are you actually going to do some painting now?
Yeah, if you want to see, I'm happy to do.
Yeah, we'd love to see. Would we not, Zoomers? Would anyone not want to see it?
Okay. So here is my watercolor palette. I have a quite limited palette. Shall I? Yeah, I put it closer. So basically, I have two versions of each primary color. So I have a warmer and a colder blue, a warmer and a colder red, warmer and a colder yellow. That's my basic palette. But also I have some additional colors like yellow ochre or kind of orange. I have a bright green, because sometimes greens can be so bright in nature that I can't mix it from blues and greens. I also have some kind of brown colors, so-called earth colors. My favorite is burnt sienna. It's a reddish brown. So what you see here is done purely with watercolors, and now I want to go into some details, and for this detail I use this so-called body color, which is the gouache mixed with the watercolor. For example, you see the pale eye ring is very characteristic of this bunting, the Ortolan Bunting, and without this eye ring, the bird is not really an ortolan. So let's do this eye ring, and I hope that the bird will gain its character with this.
The bird will come to life.
I think after, when I paint the shine in the eye, that's when it will come to life.
Okay.
So let's do that also.
Yeah. You're okay talking whilst doing this, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we had Darren Woodhead here. You must know Darren Woodhead.
I watched the video. I love his work, and I love his dedication in all kind of weather conditions. He's outdoors.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And what's also interesting is that, because someone did ask at the time, show us how you paint, and he doesn't do the oval thing. He just paints directly onto the canvas.
Yeah, no pencil drawing, no preparatory drawing. Amazing.
Is that unusual? Because I'm a bit of a Philistine when it comes to art. Is that unusual amongst wildlife painters?
Yeah, not many artists do this technique.
Yeah, because I was lucky to stand, and I mean, he was sitting down, because Lars Johnson is about 15 foot tall, as you probably know, is a very tall man. But he was sitting down. I managed to peep over his shoulder whilst he was sketching. I was with him in Spain, and it was incredible. He was just sketching griffin vultures that he will then use to paint. But he too also uses, a sketch before he paints.
Yeah. We all have different attitude.
Yeah.
Different approach.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's interesting, because people say they can't draw or they can't paint. I mean, I was telling Darren that I actually wrote 2 books when I was 9 years old. The first of which was called Thrushes and Their Enemies. And I basically copied the the art from a book I had at home of birds that I thought were thrushes' enemies, like like eagles and foxes and stuff. And then the next book I wrote was called Unusual Tits. And it was basically a load of different drawings of members of the tit family, again, using felt pen, you know, and that was it. But it's funny how we get things like singing and art beaten out of us as kids. You know, it's almost, I do subscribe to the idea that most kids, or all kids, when they're born, have an interest in nature, can sing and can draw, and then they can do that until they're told they can't do it.
So I don't use very small brushes for details. It's, for example, it's a number 5 brush, but it comes into a nice point. So for this eye ring, I think it will be fine to do it with this. I don't paint a pure white eye ring because it has a yellowish hue. So I mixed the gouache with some yellow and made a very, very pale yellow. And now I'm going in. Probably the eye is a bit too high, so I lower my canvas, my board. So here we go. The eye ring is thicker at the end of the eye, behind the eye. It's a bit thicker and comes to a narrower as you come forward.
So I guess as a bird artist, you unconsciously become an ornithologist, don't you? Because you're studying behavior. And
yeah.
You know, if you're drawing like a family like buntings, there's lots of similarities with many species. Some of them are kind of similar in terms of their general kind of coloration. For example, the Ortolan bunting, there's another 2 species that are kind of, you can see straight away, but they kind of come from the same sort of area. So you got the Kretschmar's bunting, yeah.
I don't know how you call it, Kretschmar.
Yeah, you probably say it better than me. And then the grey-necked, I think it is, bunting.
Yeah, from Turkey, yeah.
Yeah, and they have. So you must, you know, when you're doing all these things, you must really become familiar with these birds.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna just to show everyone here. I'm gonna quickly go and get a picture of a grey-necked and a Kretschmar's, so you can actually see how similar they are.
So I think now this bird is definitely looking more like an Ortolan bunting. Immediately with this one small feature, just 10 seconds of work, and it's much more like an Ortolan bunting.
Okay, let me just quickly interrupt for a second. I'll just show everyone. That's a similarity. See, that's the Ortolan bunting up there. The Kretschmar's, which is basically the same as the Ortolan bunting, but it's got a sort of an orangey moustache and beard as opposed to the yellow there. And then the grey-necked, which is like a mixture of the 2 really, in a way. So you can see that they all kind of have a very similar makeup, and you do obviously begin to learn about different families. So anyone here have any questions? Has anyone got any questions for Sabi whilst he's doing his art?
I made a little mistake. You see, the bird became too angry, so with the dark color I have to adjust a little bit.
So when you say he was angry, what, his eye shape was squinted or something, was it? Or?
Yeah. I think I will make it a little bit thicker, the the eye ring. I've seen this bird in Hungary, I think 25 years ago, and it was singing in a cherry tree full of white blossoms. So this painting is really a nice recall of this old memory.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Have you got? Are you? What kind of bird are you? Do you? And I don't mean that in a rude way. Do you keep lists? You know, have you got? Are you interested in seeing new birds all the time, or? Firstly, is that the first question?
Not much. For example, when I travel, especially to different continents, I prefer to have a smaller list, but I really want to have good views of those. So, for example, in Uganda, I've seen only 150 bird species. My friends were there at the same time. They have seen 600, 700. But I would prefer this way.
Yeah.
Really good views of those birds I see. So I want to have an imprint.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Because that's the sort of birding I like. I'm not interested in running around, tick, tick, tick. I want to go somewhere and know that I've seen that bird when I think about it.
Sometimes, for example, when I went to Trinidad, I didn't even have a bird book with me, and I didn't know what to expect. So it was a really shocking. Just that woodpecker popped in, landed on a tree in front of me, and I just realized, oh my God, such woodpecker exists in the world, and that was an incredible experience. It's a kind of retired way of birding, I think.
That's a chilled way.
The energetic twitching.
Yeah, it's a chilled way. Ronique has been asking, what bird would you most love to see and observe in real life?
One bird. There is a shorebird. Probably it's extinct, the slender-billed curlew.
It might not be.
May not be. Who knows? There are no definite sightings in this century, I think. There are the last two records are from Hungary. They are not much accepted internationally, but I've seen one of them, the bird in 1996. I've seen that one, but it's a very old many years passed, and I don't remember too much. So I would love to see a slender-billed curlew.
And there's a slender-billed curlew there. And
in fact, I have a field sketch of a slender-billed curlew. I can show you. But the trick that this bird, it was a very good quality specimen I could borrow for one day, and I could take it with me in the field and put in the habitat. So that's how I did a field sketch of a slender-billed curlew.
Yeah, and of course the diagnostic scenario with this bird is a spotting on the flanks, isn't it? They've got very distinct spotting, but the thing is, it's so difficult to see in the field apparently. And also there's different races of the Eurasian curlew. Some of them are small, like the slenderbill.
Yeah, sometimes it's tricky.
I got a question from Claire.
Yeah.
In fact, Claire, why don't you come and ask the question?
You put me on the spot. Okay. Hello. Yes, I was just going to ask. You mentioned about you've seen it on the blossom, and you've got the blossom there. Will you fill in the detail on the blossom, or do you just tend to focus the detail on the bird? And
no, I think I will put the same detail in the blossoms also. So
okay.
it will be a quite photorealistic painting.
Amazing. Love the detail.
You can see I already started to put some details.
I saw you'd started on one. I just wondered if you, it's beautiful. God, you can really see the its face there. Amazing. Thank you.
So I think now the eye ring is done. So let's let's bring the eye into life. So it's a sunny scene. The sun is shining from this direction. I have this arrow to remind me here. So I want to show the bird's eye. If it's a sunny day, it mirrors the sky. So I will put a half circle of bluish sky in the eye. Not so obvious, only a faint suggestion of the sky. I mix a very dark, a little bit purplish blue for this, like this. Oh, where it is here. It's a kind of purple, and with this I can paint this half circle in the eye. And when this is dry, then because you can see the sun in the eye of the bird, if it's a sunny day, then I will put a spot, also a spot that will be pure white. And you see, even for this tiny spot, I use this number 5 brush, so it will be fine because they come into a really tiny point, and it's fine.
I mean, what sort of brushes do you use?
For painting with watercolors, I use natural hair brushes. It's called Kolinsky brush. It's quite expensive, but it's very, very good for watercoloring.
All right.
So you see, if you put some this detail in the eye, then the bird comes to life. It's quite good detail. It brings the bird to life.
Ronique has another question.
Yeah.
Did it take you some time to figure out his high arm technique, rest technique? You know what, Ronique, do you want to ask this question yourself? Because I don't really quite understand what you mean.
The armrest. Yeah, this is some English Hungarian dictionaries. I don't need them anymore, so I learned all the words and now I can use it.
Was that the answer to your question, Monique? And yes, it was, apparently. So how much longer will it take for you to finish this particular bird?
This painting? I think probably today I will finish the bird. And then tomorrow I will complete the blossoms. Probably I won't need the whole day tomorrow. So roughly one more day of work, 10 hours.
Okay. Do you get many commissions, and where do you get them from these days? Yeah,
luckily I have I'm quite overwhelmed by commissions. This New Guinea field guide will have a 3rd edition in a few years, probably next year. So I had to they want to change a few plates because of some taxonomic changes, new knowledge about some birds.
Yeah.
So I had to paint all the night birds, owls, all-death nightjars, and I still have 3 plates to do. One is an all-death nightjar plate. These are tiny night birds, very intricate plumage, a lot of details, so it will take a long time to complete that. And there is also a kind of they call them catbirds, but they are not the same catbirds as in the US. They are relative to the bowerbirds, and there were two catbirds previously, but that was split into, I think, 8 or 10 species. So I have to paint a new plate, and also a small brown bird called shrike thrush, little shrike thrush, which is also a taxonomic complex, and I will have to make a plate of that species.
How do you think the art of bird painting? How do you think it's changed over the years? Because obviously you look back, for example, into the 19th, 18th centuries, and a lot of the art was very sort of posed, for want of a better word. And I suppose the most famous of them all for me is Mr. Audubon.
Audubon, yeah.
The way
Back then, they didn't have these optics we have. No photography, no binoculars, proper binoculars.
Just guns.
So they could see the birds close only when they shot them.
Yeah.
That's why because they posed the birds, which they thought it's a natural position.
Yeah.
That's why they are so stiff.
Yeah, because Fran has just said here that dead birds don't move. But what's interesting, it's like the dodo. The dodo is always drawn in the classic pose, but in reality, in life, it moved very differently and probably didn't stand in the way we always see it sort of bolt upright, looking like a dodo. It's actually moved in a very different way, which is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, the arts has really changed over the years. I think now it's become such.
Yeah, now it's easier, much easier with all these references.
And the detail. I mean, for me, one of the best field guides on the planet in terms of the art is the Collins Guide for me, because this is
I love it.
But I mean, some of the images here are amazing, and I remember being a kid and looking at some of the earlier field guides, and some of them were really badly painted on reflection, but you look at them and you actually go out in the field expecting to see a bird with a square head, or it's just so different to what you see in real life. And even now, there's a few field guides, especially when I go to places like Asia, and you pick up a guide and the pictures are just awful. But that's all the reference you've got.
Yeah.
So has anyone got any questions? You're a bit shy today. You're just mesmerised by the Ortolan Bunting, I'd imagine.
Yeah, meanwhile, I put some detail on the face, because there are some roughed up feathers on the face of the buntings, especially when they're singing. And with this gouache mixture, I can really show individual feathers. And for example, this number 5 size brush is perfect because it's the same size like an individual feather. So, for example, I just need to put some dots here under the eye, and we immediately have the impression of having some details. I don't over detail my paintings, illustrations more, but I don't aim for a really hyper realistic work.
So your work also has an element of art as opposed to reference.
I try to put something additional.
Ronique has just asked, how many different brush sizes do you use to paint one bird?
Most of the painting you see were done with quite big brushes, number 8 and number 10. I did all these. First layer of this painting was done with these brushes. This is compared to my fingers, I guess. But this is also this Martin hair brush. It's Kolinsky Rottweiler brush, and when they are wet, they come into a nice point. You see.
Yeah.
So even with this, I can paint small details.
Do you ever give lessons, classes, for people to learn how to paint?
Not much. Probably I will make some videos for my YouTube channel in the future, just recording painting process. How I create a painting, but not really teaching.
Okay, you're too busy anyway. You've got too many commissions.
Yeah.
Fran has asked, do you ever do big paintings?
Yes. I paint in oils also, usually the size of 50 per 70 centimeters or 70 per 100. That's my usual size. But recently I had a huge commission, 225 meters, 225 centimeters, and 125 tall. That was my biggest oil ever.
What's your least favorite bird to paint?
I don't have least favorite birds to paint.
Or families of birds?
Families, no, nothing I can recall.
Yeah.
The spoonbill, usually I'm not satisfied with the final result because it's a quite awkward faced bird. So it probably I don't like to paint too much spoonbills because I always feel that the final result is a bit awkward. But probably it's because the bird looks like that.
Yeah. Okay. We're kind of coming to our hour. I just wondered if anyone else has any questions at all that I'd like to ask Sabi.
Oh, yeah, it's coming to an end. Oh, then I just quickly show you something I wanted. So there is a lot of detail on the wing. So I already indicated the different feather parts. This is a lesser coverts, medium coverts, and these are the tertials, secondaries. But I usually give it a wash, an overall wash, and add the details later. I will show you. So I make a mixture of a darker color and just cover the whole area with this.
Why'd you do that?
And now when I come over this later with this gouache mixture, I can have a nice smooth transition in the details of the feathers. That's my usual technique to do these kind of details in the birds. So now you see I covered the whole wing, but still see the details I want to fill later. So for example, there is a greenish brown edge to these feathers here. So now I can come up with a mixture and add the detail on this. And this will bring back these feather edges.
All right.
like this, and then go on with the pale tips of the feathers.
So what is your favorite bird?
Difficult to say. I don't have one particular. Probably easier to say my number 10. For example, I love little bitterns because we have them near my home in my district, and I have a little pond where I can sketch them. I don't miss any summer sketching the little bitterns. I also very like these brownish singing birds, which are really not spectacular, but I love these different slight change of tones of their feathers. Like I love sketching nightingales, great-eared warblers, marsh warblers. I really love them. And of course, I have a lot of favorite shorebirds. Slender-billed curlew is one of them. It's always a sad feeling. I really love the spoon-billed sandpiper. And of course, recently this bird of paradise madness took over me. I love them too.
Yeah.
And owls. I love owls.
So that's your top 10.
Yeah.
And if you could be anywhere on the planet, I mean, forgetting about coronavirus, where would you want to be right now?
Right now, there is a place where probably I will never get to. Is the small atolls in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where you can see this Tuamatu sandpiper, the Tuamatu atolls. And if there is a wish that is fulfilled, then that would be my immediate one, just to get there to see this Tuamatu sandpiper.
Fantastic. Well, before we sign off, I just wanted to tell everyone what's happening over the next few days. We've got basically in conservation with every day until Monday. Tomorrow we got a young kid, Kabir Kaul, he's 14 years old, and he'll be talking, he lives in London, he's a Londoner, and he'll be talking about how he's so enthused about trying to get people in London to notice wildlife and to see the wildlife, the wild side of London, as he puts it, should I say. Yeah. And then on Saturday, we've got Tony Juniper, who's the Chief of English Nature. That should be a very interesting discussion because English Nature have recently announced that they are allowing peregrine falcons, excuse me, to be taken from the wild for falconry. So that could be an interesting topic of discussion. On Sunday, we have Lars Johnson, the big man from Sweden. He's an amazing artist, you know, same as Sabi, great artist. And he will be coming on Sunday to talk about how he does things, how he paints. And
I will definitely join that.
Yeah. And finally, on Monday, the 11th, we have Jonathan Mayrav, a good friend of mine. He's Israeli, and he'll be talking about the Champions of the Flyway. That's a competition, annual competition held in the Negev Desert to try and see as many birds as possible in a 24-hour period. But also, he'll be talking about talking about nature in Israel. So that'd be an interesting conversation. All of them start at 4:30 in the afternoon, UK time. So please, you're welcome along to come and join in. I think if there's no more questions, then I have to, at this point, turn around to my good friend Sabi and say thank you so much for allowing us in your studio and talking with us.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you for talking with us, you know, about your work. And Claire's asking, are you on Instagram?
Yeah, it's Art Kókay or Kókay Art, I don't know exactly.
So it's Kókay Art. I'll write it down for everyone so they can see it. Kokayart, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you look up that, you might be able to find Sabi on Instagram. So once again, guys, thank you very much for attending today. Thank you, Sabi, for letting us, in on your work. And take care, everyone. Stay safe. And don't forget, keep looking up. And we'll meet again pretty soon.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's Art Kókay.
Art Kókay.
Art Kókay, yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot. See you later, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.